I'd like to pass you over to Michael now, and you can proceed now with your presentation, Michael. Thank you very much.
Niall, thank you very much, and thank you to Antonella and to Stephen for some excellent presentations there. I'll go through this quite quickly. I'm going to go in a quite a different direction to the two previous speakers, and just refer to, I suppose, how we've got to where we're at, why we got involved in this in the first place, where we're currently at, and just to take you through some of the projects we're working on as well. I'm conscious of the time. I'm conscious that you've lost a bit of time, so I'll try and make up a little bit of time as I'm going along here, if that's okay with you, Niall.
Thanks, Michael. Any time you're up would be appreciated. Thank you.
And I'm here to serve. Just in case any of you, or I'm not sure how much knowledge is out there in terms of ETBs, there is 16 ETBs in the country. I wasn't planning on going this, but just listening to some of what you were saying there, they came about as a result of the ETB Act in 2013. We are statutory bodies, and we are responsible for education, training, and youth work within our own regions. So it's important to know that. In our own case, we would have been formed as with the amalgamation of County Wexford, County Waterford, City of Waterford VECs, with what was I suppose, the delivery arm of what was FOSS, who had made their own journey across into Solus and then finally into us as ETBs. So we would have about 1,700 employees across the two counties, just ourselves, and about 23,000 learners, again, just across the two counties. So that's just giving a context as to who the ETBs are, and we're with Waterford and Wexford ETB. If I move this on, look, there's a formal definition of nZEB, but that has already come up this morning. So if it's okay with everybody, and as I say, it's probably coming up later on, I'll just move beyond that because I think most people are reasonably aware with that anyway. Okay, why did WWETB become involved in this particular area? And I've put up a number of things there that underline or underpin why we did. We are heavily involved in the training sector. We have the second largest training centre in the country in Waterford, and we have another training centre in Wexford. And we are very heavily involved, particularly in the construction, in training apprentices in the construction sector. So we have, as one of our directors says, we have skin in the game here with this. In terms of nZEB, and going back to when we started this process, end of 2017 into 2018, there was an unusual local awareness of nZEB and nZEB regulations, in particularly the Enniscorthy area, with Wexford County Council being involved in the development of a number of housing schemes in the Enniscorthy area, which were A-rated houses. Enniscorthy and Wexford were the locations of two major conferences, again through 2017 and 2018, with the first World nZEB conference taking place in Wexford. And if you look at the demographics, there is a very large number of people in the Waterford and Wexford area who are involved in the construction sector. So this is these are developments that are of great interest to the area. In terms of our own planning, we looked at the stages, what stages we needed to go through in terms of development. So we wanted to develop what we would call in educational terms, learning outcomes. But we were advised in consulting with, particularly with a number of government departments, to refer to them as national skills specifications, as they would be best understood by the industry in that format. Once those skill specifications were developed, then they needed to be converted into training programs. Those training programs, to have any sort of standing out in the community, needed to go through a certification process. We also needed to identify a premises in Enniscorthy, because we had no training facility in Enniscorthy, and then bring it up to what we would consider training standard. And then obviously the key part, deliver the training that's needed in the sector. So the first stage on that was the development of the national skills specifications. So we set out in 2018 to develop these national skills specifications. We contracted a company who are experts in this area, Mossart, to work with us in terms of developing these draft skill specifications. But at the same time, and we mirrored this in processes that we followed after this as well, we put together a national advisory group. And as the skills specifications were developed, the draft skill specifications were developed, we brought them to the National Advisory Group, who went through them literally word for word to make sure they were covering what needed to be covered. And particularly in relation to the Part L, which at that stage was coming down the track. So it was important that the skill base that were on the National Advisory Group were knowledgeable enough to be able to deal with that. And if you take a look at the list of organizations who were represented on that National Advisory Group, you had government departments, you had state agencies, you had third level institutions, you had the employers represented by CIF, among others, you had the trade unions represented by the Congress of Trade Unions, and then you had a number of other parties like county councils, Gas Standards Ireland, gas networks, etc., who were represented on this group. So quite an array of knowledge there. So what were the specifications we centered in on developing? There were three groupings essentially. The first grouping was anybody who was on a site or had anything to do with the construction sector. And the training program that was put together for that was what we call the nZEB fundamentals, or the fundamentals of nZEB would probably be a better way to look at it now. For that program, you have everybody from your building suppliers, and that would be very significant from what Stephen was referring to in his earlier presentation. You have teachers who are teaching building construction inside in schools. You have the person making the tea on a site. You have literally everybody that would be associated. So it's a one-day program. And when COVID hit, we were delivering that program in our training center in Enniscorthy. We had to shut everything down as everybody else did. But what we did is we moved that program to live delivery online, and we have continued with that program as live delivery online. That program is delivered through Skills to Advance for people who are at work for no cost. The second grouping is for the trades, and we looked at the regulations and we looked at what trades were going to be affected by Part L, and we identified electrical, plumbing, bricklaying, carpentry and plastering. And we developed specific training programs for each one of those. Again, for anybody involved in those trades that wants to access that 3-day program, there is no cost associated with it. The third grouping were the site supervisors, and they would have been, I suppose, formerly known as a site foreman. The program for them, or the course for them, is a 4-day course. And again, that is covered under the Skills to Advance program. So there's no cost associated with that for the individual who wants to do it. In the picture there, by the way, that's Dara, who has since moved on to Part L, who was delivering the instruction, to Mr. Scott Foster, who's the director of UNECE. So where are we at? And it's hard to cover everything, but I've picked out just a couple of key points that I think everybody on the conference here this morning would be interested in. At this stage, the national skills specifications for all of the programs that I've just described have been developed, and they were launched by Minister Murphy in November 2019 at the World nZEB Conference. We have converted each one of those specifications into training programs. Manuals have been developed in conjunction with Limerick Institute of Technology, or LIT. Each one of the programs has gone through, and we were actually the first to go through the new mechanism that City and Guilds were using called Quality Assured. And this is what attracts us to that, because each one of the people who goes through that program gets a digital badge. Now that's really important for somebody who's going onto a site, because they can have it on their phone that they have the qualification that they are claiming to have. So if a site supervisor wants to look at it or whatever, they can verify it there and then. Delivery of the specifications began in WWETB pilot nZEB training centre in Enniscorthy towards the end of November 2018. We went from the first meeting of the National Advisory Group in March 18 through that entire process, and we're at delivery by the end of 2018. So we have been extremely responsive to the needs, to the identified needs of the industry. As we continue through 2019, we continue to convert the specifications into training programs, roll them out through pilot programs, and continue through the delivery. That continued into 2020. As we know, in March 2020, unfortunately, with the shutdown with COVID, there has been some issues with that. I think it's really important to highlight that what we set up was a pilot training centre, rolling out these training programs. Minister Harris in December 2020 announced 4 additional ETBs, which were developing training centre, and that is Limerick Clare ETB, Mayo Sligo Leitrim ETB, Cork ETB, and Laois Offaly ETB. And should there be more demand than can be catered for by all 5 of us, then I'm sure that Solis and the Minister will expand that out even further. Where are we at in terms of the current range of courses on offer? nZEB Fundamentals I've spoken about. As I said, we have that now gone through online delivery, and that's through live classes, not through recorded video. nZEB trades courses. We have the 5 trades courses I spoke about. I'm going to come back on that if you don't mind in a moment. Site supervisor is delivery. Site operative, that is for anybody, and that's aimed at people who are unemployed who want to come into the trade sector. We have a specific program that we can put in place to bring them up to speed. We have an nZEB retrofit training program, and we have converted the space in our Waterford training centre away from the Enniscorthy one, so that we're not going to interfere with that. We have a special retrofit training centre in the Waterford training centre, and we do the delivery of retrofit training there. The only entry requirement we have on people doing that particular course is that they have the fundamentals course done before they come in. I have an additional little piece I want to come back on that in a moment. We, at the SAI conference in 2019, we were approached about the development of specification around ventilation. We went through the exact same process that I've just described in terms of nZEB, and we began the delivery of ventilation training in the Enniscorthy Training Centre in November, the end of November 2019. So that's now in place as well. So that's very, very interesting, and I've a picture later on in the presentation I can show you with that. I think it's important, and I'm very big into getting a more globalized picture of what we're at. One of the things that we developed at the same time with the intention of bringing it together with our nZEB training, but we just simply didn't have space in the one building, but it is in Enniscorthy, and that is the development of a Fab Lab. And we also put another Fab Lab into New Ross, and this is in conjunction with our colleagues in Wexford County Council. So through the Fab Lab, we're delivering training in SolidWorks, AutoCAD, Inventor, and particularly would be of interest to the group who are here this morning, we deliver Revit training as well. And there has been quite a pickup on Revit training. And we have a virtual reality platform that you can go through that building as you develop it. So I think that's very interesting. We also have the 3D printing, laser cutting, CNC milling. An interesting little point here, I'm sure an awful lot of people, a greater than average number on this particular conference, watched the program EcoEye. And there was a program done on the effects of radon gas within domestic buildings. One of the things that was done in that was on a housing estate, a new housing build that took place in a small village in South Wexford, where they had a pipe coming out of the radon box. There was an attachment put on the top of that pipe to facilitate the extraction of the radon gas. that was actually printed in the Fab Lab in Enniscorthy for those buildings. So there is potential application here. And I have seen some countries who are starting to explore using 3D in terms of printing blocks, printing housing, where that'll go. We're not at that stage yet, but you'd never know. In a couple of years' time, it may be something we in WWETB may explore. We are exploring, as a complete aside now, we are exploring 3D chocolate. So nothing to do with construction, but it does sound interesting. What do constructors or tradespeople have to say? I have a short video here. I'm not sure will this show or not. So I don't know whether I need to press that or not. But can I make people aware that it is available on the WWETB YouTube site, where you can have a look at that? Will I keep going, Niall? Because I know you're tight for time.
Yeah, we're just a bit tight for time.
That's fine. I'll keep going. But just to make people aware, it is there, and I would encourage people to have a look, because there is some excellent feedback on what they feel about the program.
Thank you, Michael. In
terms of next steps, Solas, we put a case to Solas that we needed to explore a number of issues that have come up as a result of what we've done. One is very clearly a shortage of people who are capable of delivering the training on what we're talking about. So we've put together, in conjunction with LIT, a trainer program at level 7, and the first cohort will be going through that trainer program and graduate at the end of May. The second thing that we have done is an issue that came up with the trades. When we developed the courses, 3-day course we reckoned was short enough that people would be released off site to do the course. The issue became very clearly that building sites were absolutely hopping, and they didn't have the time to release people off site to go do the training, or people who were self-employed weren't willing to go and do the training. So what we have done is we have taken the 3-day program, we have taken all of the theoretical end of it, and we have put that into a blended format, but the skills acquisition still need to be done on site. So basically we have put 2 of the 3 days online, with the 3rd day delivered on site. So essentially it has gone from 3-day release to a 1-day release for the person doing the course. So I think that's very significant, and should have, with the look of God, will have a big effect on the numbers that will be able to go through that training. In terms of retrofit, the last thing we want is to start going back over basics, getting people to build walls, tear down walls, stuff like that. That's a complete waste of time. You're dealing with qualified tradespeople by and large that are going on to this course. But we wanted to be able to explore the internals of walls. We wanted to explore different topographies. We wanted to explore different junction points that were causing trouble in already built housing. So we've got a number of 3D models that we have already in place, but what we're now doing, and we had our first meeting on this only last Wednesday, we are developing a virtual reality retrofit training, and it is to enhance the current training that we have on offer in our Waterford Training Centre. So that's very exciting. We would hope to have that in place towards the end of October. We are exploring for 2022. We're currently working on the development of heat pumps training. The first one is currently being delivered by a number of private contractors and 1 or 2 ETBs, and we're getting into that space in terms of installation and commissioning. But we also want to include F-gas training as part of that training as well. The second thing we want to look at, because there is a clear need, not at the moment, but very, very soon, is in terms of maintenance and repair of the heat pumps. Because if you try and go out and try and find somebody who can fix these, that's to look to you. And we want to be in a position to be able to address that, because that's a clear need, especially with 400,000 pumps coming in. Again,
okay, sorry, Michael, we're just very conscious of time, and it's now 25 to 12. So, will we wrap it up in the next minute or so?
I will. Okay? No problem.
Sorry. Thank you.
Just in terms of that, again, just to give you the fuller picture, We have a program developed on plastic welding. There was an issue around qualifications around plastic welding. We have developed this in terms in conjunction with the industry, and that is available once the restrictions lift. That's our ventilation. That's what it looks like. I'm just going through this very, very quickly. This is taken in our retrofit training in Waterford. Some of you may have seen that on the EcoI program. That's again down in the training centre in Waterford. That's what the Fab Lab actually looks like. We are one of the founder members of the Network of International Centres of Excellence under the banner of the UN. That picture was taken on the executive floor of the UN building in New York. And that lady there in the middle, that is the Deputy Secretary General of the UN. So it has quite a high degree of sanction within that organization. These are the key websites that I would like everybody to leave with today. The first one is the WWETB one. The second one is the website if anybody wants to sign up for training or wants to advise people to sign up for nZEB training. The third one is our Fab Lab site. And the last one is a national website. You all need to be aware of it. And that's where every course up to and including level 6 is available all over the country.